This weekend, Tennessee plays the second-best Bulldog team in the SEC.
Kirby needs to give Dr. Doofenshmirtz his balloonie back.
Balloonie! I'm Shea, and this is Jace. Today, we're going to be looking at how each team can win, their key players, and our PCS final score predictions. The game is going to be held in Athens, Georgia, in Sanford Stadium on November 16th at 7:30 Rocky Top time. The line is UGA minus 9.5.
For Georgia, they're 7-2 under Kirby Smart. We've talked about him a lot this season. Their key losses are to Alabama and Ole Miss. They just lost to Ole Miss this past weekend in a really ugly game, and they do have that win over Texas and Austin, which is pretty impressive. They've had one of the tougher SEC schedules in the country this year, but they've still, despite that, been very sloppy, even against teams like Mississippi State, Florida, at times in that game. Not really the best performances in those games. And as I said, they're coming off of the loss to Ole Miss, 28-10. Their offense just got completely shut down by that Ole Miss defense, and I'm kind of hoping we do the same thing. I think we actually have a comparable defense to Ole Miss. So look at some of their important players here. Carson Beck, obviously their quarterback. He was kind of a Heisman hopeful at the beginning of the season,
right?
But he's been pretty bad this year. 12 picks, ties first in the whole country. I mean, Georgia's still obviously a really good team. Their record is very good. But if their defense was worse, they would be losing because of Carson Beck throwing the game away to these other teams.
Yes, at the moment, they are winning despite Carson Beck.
Exactly. They have multiple stars on their defense, individual stars. Malachi Starks, Michael Williams, Nas Stackhouse. I could go on and on. And although, individually, they haven't been amazing this year, they've been one of the best defenses in the country as a team. And they've, as I said, had to make up a lot for those offensive mistakes.
Yeah.
Trevor Etienne came into the year as one of the best running backs in the country. The Florida transfer, he's been pretty underwhelming this year. It's been a mix of injuries and just, other guys getting opportunities. He has had a few good games. Texas, Auburn, he popped out. But overall, he hasn't been, that great. And the other thing about Georgia is their receiving room has had a noticeable drop-off this year. I think, as SEC fans, we kind of undervalue guys like, Brock Bowers is always good, but guys like Ladd McConkey, right?
Yep.
I really think that they made Carson Beck look a lot better than he actually is. It's been a mix of Carson Beck being, terrible and just him having bad reads, and also their receivers just not running the right routes or drops. They've had a huge drop rate this year. But yeah, that connection overall has just been bad. Us as Tennessee fans have been complaining about the Nico to our receiver connection,
right,
but it's not that much better in Athens either. Some general information that I think is interesting. This, at this point, is a must-win game for Georgia. If they drop this game, this is their last SEC game. If they lose this game, they could be out of the playoffs. I do think that Texas win and just their strength of schedule overall could sneak them in to that, 11 spot above a Boise State. But, we'll see. Another thing, Georgia has not lost 2 in a row since 2018, which was the postseason. But their last regular season loss, this is crazy. They lost to Ole Miss in Oxford, just like last week, and then they followed that up losing to Tennessee on that Hail Mary play from Josh Dobbs to Juwan Jennings. Can we see that again this week?
Yeah, I hope so.
That would be insane.
Maybe not the Hail Mary part.
And, Georgia's had our number for a long time. It hasn't been quite as bad as Alabama when they went on that 15-game win streak.
Yeah.
But we've lost 7 straight, and in those 7 games, we haven't put up more than 21.
Yeah, Kirby's had our number. He's been able to stop our high-powered offenses, each year.
I've never thought we matched up well against them. Their personnel, obviously, is consistently, defensively, one of the best in the country. Hopefully that'll change this week, though.
Yeah, and so looking at how each team can win, I mean, this offense this year is nowhere near as effective as that offense that got shut down 2 years ago.
Right.
So let's start with Tennessee. How they can win, don't miss. And this goes for both him and the receivers, but when you throw it, make sure it lands in his hands, and when it lands in his hands, he better catch it. That's all it really comes down to. I mean, we've seen them get open. They're just not connecting.
That's easy to say, watching the game, just don't miss. I know what you mean, though. I think that goes deeper than just Nico, don't miss kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not missing guys that are wide open, as you said.
Yeah.
Or, screen passes. Don't overthrow screen passes, just everything. I was on the same page. I went a little more in depth. Nico just can't fold under pressure like the Arkansas game.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had an away game in a month, right? And what we've seen from Nico on the road has not been that good. And we know that, Sanford can bring the heat, just similar to Neyland, right?
Yeah.
This is another night game for Tennessee, but Nico can't fold under pressure. He can't freak out. He can't, throw stupid passes, and he does have to be accurate for us to go above and beyond to win the game. Another one of my keys was to capitalize on Carson Beck's turnovers. I mean, he's shown, as I said earlier, 12 picks on the year. He's just been a turnover machine. Not to mention, they've also had bad fumbling. I think on the year they're -3 in turnover margin. And, if they're going to give the ball to us, we gotta capitalize if we want to win. That's, deep balls. Mm-hmm. That's, as we said, Nico's accuracy. Another one of my keys to win, which goes into this, is efficiency with Sampson's carries. Now, that has not been a worry for us this year. I mean, he's been one of the most efficient players and most dominant players in the country this year, but especially against a team like Georgia, who has some really solid players up front, he just has to be efficient.
Speaking of Sampson, he cannot fumble in this game, especially how he has been near the red zone. Somehow, he's the one that drives us down to the red zone, and then he's the one that turns it over. So that's one of my key takeaways for Tennessee is, Sampson, just don't fumble the ball, please.
And that's been a legitimate concern for us. I mean, he's had a fumble in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
When you put the ball in, a guy's hand that much, but he's had 30 carries last game. He had like 27 before the game before. If he fumbles every game, that's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, he went from 0 career fumbles to 3 in a row.
Most of my ways that Tennessee can win are offensively, and this next one, we were watching some of that Ole Miss game, and specifically in that game, Georgia just could not tackle.
Yeah.
We have to be able to force broken tackles, whether that's with Sampson or our receivers, and then the way to do that is to get the ball to guys in open space. We've been, screen merchants all year.
Yeah.
Based upon the film, not necessarily schematically, but personnel-wise, this is the game to do that. If they can't tackle, let Dante or Brew. He's been such a good broken tackle kind of guy. Throw the ball to him with a screen, let him, go crazy on him. And then, the one-on-one tackles situations, we have to capitalize in those areas if we want to get those extra yards.
Yeah, so I definitely see what you're saying because I'm not for the screens, but I do see how they can be very effective when done right and when called at the right time.
And it doesn't have to always be screens, but just getting the balls to open guys in space, that's kind of, I think, the way that we can win this game.
Yeah, I mean, literally my third point on how Tennessee can win is creative play calling on third down.
Yep.
And they could be normal every other play. If you want to run it up the middle twice, I mean, I can't stop you. Obviously, no one can stop Heupel from doing that. But whenever it's 3rd and 8, get creative, or 3rd and 5. Just be creative. Do something interesting.
Yep.
You don't have to do a screen. You don't always have to throw the deep ball. Our guys have been getting open in the middle of the field. We seem to just be wide open in the middle of the field. So let me see some of that too,
Yep. My way to win for Tennessee defensively, the only one that I had, is just, get in Beck's face and speed him up. As we said multiple times, he's been a turnover machine this season. And, we have the D-line to do it. Now, Georgia's O-line is really, really solid. But, if James Pierce is ever going to have a game where he just goes crazy with the sacks, this has got to be it.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to hope that he can go crazy in this game. But we saw against Mississippi State that our edge rushers can get some pressure if their last name isn't Pierce Jr. So
yeah. I mean, I just think that's because every team, he's the number 1 guy on the scouting report. They're chipping him. They're throwing double teams at him.
The final way that Tennessee can win this game is no holdings or a false start on 3rd down.
Not.
Sure, you want to do it on 1st down, 2nd down, whatever. I mean, it's going to happen. But as long as it doesn't happen on 3rd down, we should be able to sustain drives. I mean, Heupel, talk about Nico folding under pressure. Heupel folds under pressure on 3rd and longs, dude. He has no idea how to convert them. He's like, maybe a screen will work. And then when that didn't work,
just get the 1st down.
Yeah, when that didn't work, he was like, all right, well, let's just give up and punt and give them bad field position. But that doesn't work. I mean, it has been working, but it didn't work against Arkansas.
3rd and longs are hard enough to convert to begin with, and then when you're playing a team like Georgia in Athens, but that is my final way to win for Tennessee. And I think we've been pretty good at this all season, but it's paramount in this game is being persistent. I mean, this is a really hard-nosed defense and a really difficult place to play, And we're an offense that hasn't really been super successful this season. We just have to tough it out, be consistent, be persistent. And, this is going to be a tough game for Nico, but he just has to put his head down, keep fighting, and then maybe we can pull out the win.
Yep. So looking at Georgia, the way that they can win this game, I think, starts with limiting Dylan Sampson because he is our backbone, and he's the way that we control the clock and kind of control the game. And he's pretty good at that. As long as he doesn't call a billion run up the middle with Dylan Sampson plays, Sampson can, when he's in space, he just never stops moving his legs.
Yep.
And Georgia's had a really tough time tackling in the past few games. So while this would be a key takeaway for us is to, break these tackles that they haven't been able to make. But for them, they need to limit him and wrap him up.
I had something similar, just win the lines of scrimmage. They've been pretty good at that all season. If you look at a game like Georgia versus Alabama, Alabama just pretty much did whatever they wanted against Georgia.
Yeah.
It was a lot of QB run, just a lot of running in general. And we're a run-first team. And if you look at the Ole Miss game, they haven't really been the best running team up to this point, but they were pretty successful when they did try to run. Just win the lines of scrimmage, offensively and defensively, because our pass rush is going to be hungry to get to Beck this game, as I said, in Tennessee's ways to win.
So what is a little bit different for Georgia this year is that they have been passing a lot more often than they've been running.
Which is surprising to me.
Yeah.
Considering Beck's failure in passing.
Yeah, Beck has exactly 100 more attempts than Nico so far this season, and Dylan Sampson has over 100 more carries than ETN. And I know ETN was hurt for a good part of the year, but this starts with Beck, and it ends with Beck. He cannot have any interceptions. Now, I can't even guarantee that our Tennessee offense will be able to capitalize when he does have a pick. I do think he'll have an interception, but if they want to win this game, he needs to have none, or at least get the ball right back if he does have one.
I don't think you can say no interceptions because that's the way that Georgia's been winning is they've been throwing interceptions and then still pulling out the win.
Yeah.
But I agree. We have one of the tougher defenses Georgia's faced, right?
Yep.
We're in the same realm of Texas and Ole Miss, I think. And I will say limit the turnovers, of course. That's every game, limit the turnovers. Can Carson Beck have a 3-pick game and they still win? Possibly. But to make it easy on yourself, Georgia, limiting the turnovers. But my main way to win is to not let us capitalize. That's, I said that was our way to win. But, when, Beck throws that pick and we're on, already on Georgia's side of the field, hold us to a field goal. Georgia's been doing that all year, and with the way that our offense has played sometimes this year, I still think they can do that.
And Gilbert might miss it anyway.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
we do have to give him some credit because he did play good last game, but he could miss it.
But it was Mississippi State. I don't think he was under as much pressure.
Right.
So thirdly, Georgia needs to be more physical, which on paper they most definitely are. But I'm thinking specifically their running game. This means their center and their guard. Whenever they run up the middle, we saw against Mississippi State that we're not going to be able to stop it every time. We get lucky because we bite down so extremely aggressively that if we hit the right gap, that play is done for. But when we don't, you're going to get 20 on us. And I see Georgia doing that a lot more often than what Mississippi State could do. Mississippi State did it a lot. So they need to abuse our linebackers and our interior D-line. Because they should just be able to on paper.
What you were saying about our aggressiveness, that's 100% true. We're an aggressive team offensively and defensively, which as a fan, it's it has trade-offs, right? It's fun to watch when it's successful. And to pull out an upset at Georgia, you have to be aggressive, right?
Yeah.
But one of my main ways that Georgia can win, and, saying this as a Tennessee fan hurts, but just you got to destroy Nico. He's a redshirt freshman. This is his first time ever playing against Georgia. He's coming off of an injury, which as Tennessee fans we don't think is that impactful, but it's still going to be there, right?
Yeah.
Just whenever you can sack Nico or tackle him, you got to hit him. You got to hit him hard because if Gatson Moore goes in there, he looked okay against Mississippi State.
Throws deep into coverage, and his first throw of the afternoon is intercepted by Malachi Moore with a lot of running room across the field. Still on his feet and out of bounds near the 35.
If Gatson Moore goes in there, I mean, he looked okay against Mississippi State. This is a different ball game with Georgia.
Yeah.
Mississippi State was 121st in defensive efficiency. I would guess Georgia's in the top 5, at least top 10. Gatson Moore's not getting it done for Tennessee if he has to come in. So, just hammer Nico whenever you can.
Yeah, in the same vein, I said force Nico to throw dimes. We might get a receiver open a few times on Georgia. We've seen their secondary be a little bit weaker this year than it has in the past, but whenever they do get open, you need to be in Nico's face at that point and force him to just throw a perfect ball, which he has obviously proven he cannot do consistently. So, yeah, kill him in the backfield and get in his face. I mean,
yeah, and my final way to win for Georgia is just to carry and sustain that momentum and home field advantage. Tennessee, again, has been a bad road team this year. Don't give them any reason, to get momentum. I remember in the 2022 game, the way that game started was relatively neutral, but the turning of the tide in that game, Georgia punted, and we were backed up on our 1 or whatever, and they were just the student section was in Hooker's ears. Jalen Carter was in our backfield. It was just chaos for Tennessee. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but I think we punted, and it either got partially blocked or was a bad punt. That situation, you have to ride that out if you're Georgia. Because if Beck's going to throw picks, or if the defense is going to let up a few chunk plays here or there, the consistent part that Georgia will have is their home field advantage. And you can't lose that if you're Georgia.
Yeah, I basically said the exact same thing. I said sustain drive. So for them, they need to do what we want to do, which is, dominate time management and just keep your offense on the field, because they've had a hard time doing that. Their play calling has not been very good, and their screens have not been successful. So just use your playmakers, get them in space, and just be efficient.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about Georgia, they still probably have better athletes than we do. They might not have performed up to the Georgia standard, but they still do. As I said, they still have this better athletes, better players maybe than we do. So, if you're looking at it on paper, they should win in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of players, let's talk about the key players. Mine starts with Carson Beck. If he has a 3-interception game, which he has, like he did in against Texas, can we be better than Texas and go down the field and capitalize on that? I don't know, but first, we have to get Carson Beck to throw that pick. He seems to throw it to everyone. For some reason, I have this feeling that he's going to be flawless in this game just because it's
probably
us. But if he's not, that's why he's a key player. How many interceptions and turnovers is he going to have?
I heard that, Kirby has historically been pretty tough on his quarterbacks when they've screwed up, except for Carson Beck. He seems to console him a lot more whenever he messes up. And I don't think that Carson Beck can take that negative reinforcement, maybe as well as some other guys in the Georgia program.
Yeah,
we got to use that to our advantage and just, hit him and pressure him as much as possible. So my first key player is James Pierce and just the Tennessee pass rush in general. That's the way to win the game. Carson Beck has to be bad in this game for us to win, and that's the first step. Now on the other side, my key player for Georgia is their O-line. It goes hand in hand. That's going to be the matchup all game. Our D-line versus Georgia's O-line. And I really do think in that battle of the trenches will determine who will win the game.
Yeah, and their running backs have this insane burst to them, and our linebackers are probably the slowest in the nation. They drive me insane watching them. But
we got to stop their running attack in that first, in the D-line, in the backfield.
Yeah.
Because if they get off of that first level, they could get a huge play on us like we saw against Kentucky a few times and against Mississippi State.
Yeah, just any time an O-lineman gets to the second level to our linebackers, they just push him.
Toast,
they push him out of the way. So we need to be able to just recognize the play as it's happening and be in position to make a tackle, because our guys can make tackles. We just got to be in position to do so.
This is the best Tennessee tackling team I've seen probably ever, and in my lifetime, I guess you could say. And on the flip side, this is one of the worst Georgia tackling teams I've seen in a while too.
Yeah.
So, but my next key player is Nico. I mean, in the same vein as saying Carson Beck has to have a bad game, Nico just has to be good. He has to play well. He can't get confused, by this Georgia defense. And historically, Kirby has been an absolute mastermind at calling confusing defenses. And, Nico has to figure it out. He has to leave all his freshman mistakes behind him. I will say, for his sake, he's been pretty good in the past 2 games, better than all season long. And he has to carry that momentum to the toughest game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I said Nico too because anytime he's rattled or nervous, he just misses the slant. He misses the out or the dig.
Or he does too much, scrambles and throws an interception or something. Yeah.
So we need him to look like he did in the Kentucky game, which was just take what the defense was giving him and extend plays. We know he can do it. He just needs the confidence, and I think he's got that. So that's why I'm a little bit more hopeful.
It's going to be tough to retain that, in a hostile environment against one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah.
I won't say I'm hopeful, but I hope it can happen for our sake. Because when we're straight up, we're just going to need him to play good for us to win. There's really no other way around it.
After breaking down this game, how each team can win, and the key players, let's talk about our predictions. So Jace and I, each week, this week's no different, we predict the final score of every Tennessee matchup through the PCSonline.com. If you don't know about the PCS, it's a very easy and fun way for you and your friends to do the exact same thing that Jason and I are doing, which is just predict the final score.
Yep.
And you get a prediction score that correlates to a letter grade, and you can compare that with each other. It's just a good time, know. So far in the year, Jason's winning. That's whatever. But our predictions are a little bit different this week.
Yes. I talked about in the last episode, we released a Mississippi State review. Go check that out if you want to see that. But I was talking about how you might you have to get a little freaky this week to come back and beat me.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Vol fans, I'm going to pull a Shea, and I'm going to predict a loss for Tennessee.
That really does surprise me.
It's what I said at the beginning. Georgia has just been like a wall for us, really ever since Kirby Smart has been their head coach. And I think that next year, if we play Georgia at home, Nico has a year under his belt, I think we can win that game. I think we can finally break the Georgia curse. But I just don't have the utmost confidence in Nico this year. I'm going to say 27-17 Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, I know both these teams have been way different than how they were predicted to be in the offseason. But I just feel like Georgia has been worse than us. They have been less efficient and just they lack confidence because of their quarterback. So I think we got 2 teams here that are both inconsistent with amazing potential. But even though it's at home for Georgia, I still see Tennessee coming in there. We got some swag. We got a little bit of confidence. I don't know why. I just got a good feeling that Kirby's going to drop the ball on this one.
I hope, bro.
And his quarterback will too. So give me Tennessee to win 23-21. As a commenter had commented on the last video, they think that I get help with my predictions through a genie, but it turns out it's just Davey. He goes by the name Disco Davey, but he does consider himself a genie because he thinks he can predict the best out of everyone here.
Clearly not.
Clearly not. But, I'll have him help me out this time and give me Tennessee to win 23-21.
All right. Listen, I hope that happens, bro, because if we win this game, I mean, the AP poll hasn't come out yet, or the college football playoff poll hasn't come out yet, the second week, that is. But if we win this game, I mean, we're already going to be top 5. If we win this game, we could jump in the top 3. Like, this would be huge win for our program, for the season, and for Nico.
Yeah.
Like, this would be his signature win if we win this game.
Yep. So, you don't think it's going to happen? I do. We'll be back here after the game to give our thoughts and, review our predictions. So, stick around for that. And, thank you so much for listening. We do everything SEC and the Vols. So stick around for our rankings, our previews, our predictions. If you enjoy this content, subscribe because everything I just mentioned is going to be coming up very soon.
Yep.
If you enjoyed this video, please give us a comment. What's your prediction? This has been Shea and Jace.
Go Vols!
Go Vols!
Baloo!